says, just some guys that go racing as a hobby. That's the real grassroots side of VLN. Totally agreed. Love to do something like that. The Manta just coming through to complete another lap. Behind it, a battle of 3 or 4 cars, not necessarily in class, but the K3 is amongst it there. The very distinctive lines of the K3. Hasslinger, now I think that is the number 30 Fricatelli Porsche. So that's a GT3 car coming through. Oh, it's the 31. I had 2 to choose from. The more I see that K3, particularly from the rear, the more I want one. I may have to live in it. Although, as somebody once sagely said to me, you can actually live in a car, you can't race a house. That was reasonable.
Just a brief shot on the screen there of the 588 car, which is in a battle for honours in this H4 class with the K3. 588 and 600 have been absolutely together throughout the race thus far, and the interesting thing is the way that they're able to get up into the overall standings. They were in the second start group, remember, they weren't in the leading start group, so in effect they've got a 2.5 minute advantage on everybody else, in that they kind of move up 2.5 minutes up the road, because the start was given 2.5 minutes later for them than it was for the leaders.
134 Aston Martin GT8 in SP8, second position the last time I looked, and still in second position. That's the Kolb and Thelinus car. That's customer racing this weekend from the Aston Martin Performance Centre on another one of the Gottlieb Strasse. And there's damage to the left front of that car, just underneath the headlight. The Vantage, still for me, a very, very pretty car, coming to the end of its works racing life. Won Le Mans, of course, in Le Mans form, at its last outing at Le Mans in the works hands. Never won Le Mans before, that shape of car, which I would have lost money on if somebody had asked me the question and made me answer it straight away. Extraordinary run in the last few laps from Johnny Adam. And the competition, the rivalry between Corvette racing and Aston Martin racing has truly defined GT racing in the last, what, decade and a half or so. I know everybody talks about Ford and Ferrari, but that is a long time ago now. I know it's been rekindled slightly recently, but really what has defined GT racing at Le Mans, certainly for the last decade and a half or so, has been Corvette and Aston Martin. And they have ultimate respect for each other, those two teams. The new Vantage race car undergoing simultaneous development. This is the GTE car with the street car. You might have seen in 1 or 2 automotive publications some quote-unquote leaked pictures of the road car. The race car shares the lines, of course, of the street car brethren. There's the Corrado again, coming down to finish its lap. And the cars are going to be unveiled publicly together, the road and the race car, for the first time. And that will be late in August.
Another problem, John, out on the circuit for the number 30 Porsche, the Sabine Schmidt's car. We're hearing that's had an accident at Exmüller that set to the circuit just after the carousel. And that car having had an accident, not quite sure whether it's going to be able to get going again. That's the second time that car has stopped, having stopped on the first lap at the Mercedes Arena.
Yeah, and also the BMW Cup leader, the 666 car. That's the blue and black car. It was running in second for quite a while. That's had a crash with the 477. Now, is that the Pixar Motorsport cars, the 477? can't remember, but I don't think it is. That's not the right number sequence for another Cup 5 car.
It's an Adenauer Motorsport car.
Right, so they weren't battling for the lead at least, but that's very bad news for the 666. And the rain, Paul, is getting very, very heavy indeed at various parts of the circuit. And I wonder now if it might be the time that one or two drivers are saying, we're going to have to go to wets.
Well, who knows the Nürburgring as well as anybody? Olaf Manthey.
Yes.
I just wonder whether that early pit stop from Manthey was to get the car onto wet, so that rather than having a slow lap on slicks, then changing to wets, they were on wets at the right time, at the right place at the right time. So we'll see how it pans out, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if the Manthey car wasn't one of the pit callers. Here comes the Haribo car into the pits on the end of the 22nd lap. What we didn't see was whether the Falcon Tyres car, the number 4 car, came into the pits.
I don't think it did.
And nor do we know what tyres Haribo are going to put onto the car. So kind of tantalising knowing some of the information, but not all.
Well, there's definitely a driver change.
Van der Zande getting ready to get back into the car, I think. Or is that Lucas
Michelin's
Schultz?
going on. Now, are there... Well, the slicks that came off, I think... Well, it's slicks or hybrids that are going on. And by hybrids, I don't mean the partially electrically powered, but I'm not sure whether they're allowed them, so that must be slicks.
I don't think they exist in a GT.
Oh, yeah, they do.
Do they?
Yeah, they do. BMW's ran them in Watkins Glen a couple of years ago, in ALMS, in IMSA, sorry. So the technology does, those slick intermediates, as they have been coined. I think they're just slicks.
Yes, in prototype racing, the indication is that there's a white background to the sticker on there, and that didn't have one. So, yeah, that is Van der Zande getting into the car.
Yes, he's got his Visit Florida shade band on. That's his DPI team in IMSA Racing, just having swapped to a Ligier chassis. Very happy with it, as fortunate enough, and I was fortunate because I just happened to be in the right place at the right time to see them roll that car out. Oh, it's wet again. It's Arenberg at the top of the foxhole.
And also in the Stefan Beloff S area, we're getting reports of heavy rain as well. So that is the 911 Porsche coming down.
Windscreen wipers running.
Tiergarten. Now,
he looks like he is very hooked up there, Paul, as if he's on wets.
Very much so, yeah. I mean, there was no tentativeness there, was there?
No.
Tentativeness, yes. So that car going through and completing its 23rd lap now, which is the lap ahead of the one which we've just seen, the number 8 coming out of the pits. Now, bearing in mind that they're now both on the same... no, it's not. That's his 22nd lap. Sorry, I misspoke there. Because he's already made his pit stop, hasn't he? So that puts the 911 into either second or third place, but leaves the Falcon car, which is also still on slicks, we're pretty sure of that, in the lead of the race.
Yeah, the 8 car stayed on slicks as well, the AMG GT. Your problem is with the Grand Prix circuit drives very quickly and it's very, very abrasive. There is the 8 car just leaving the pit lane now. So the 911 has gone past the Haribo Mercedes-Benz, or the Haribo AMG GT, sorry. The distinctive low rumble of the Mercedes engine note. Well, this is getting very interesting indeed. Coming to the end of its lap, the TCR Audi number 801. The 818 is leading TCR, and that car is in a very creditable 21st position. check that, it's the 308 that leads TCR. Drove the RS3 road car and the S3 road car recently for extended periods, and I know that the TCR cars have got 4-cylinder engines, but how nice was it to hear the straight inline 5 again, 2.5 litre, 400 horsepower in the RS, 300 horsepower in the S3. Fantastic piece of equipment, thoroughly enjoyed it, and with that very, very distinctive 5-cylinder bar, could pretend that I was Volta-Roll.
Have we mentioned the change in the Cup 3 class? The
oh no, probably not.
Cayman GT class, 960, the car has taken over the lead of that class.
They've been circulating very closely for lap after lap. We saw them for a little while, actually, on the TV pictures.
Yeah, that's so the 960 H&R Spezialfäden car has taken over the lead of the race from the Mühlner Motorsport Porsche. This is the Cayman GT4 Club Sport class. And as John says, they've been circulating very, very closely, but 960 is just, it's actually on the previous lap that car took over the lead. I wanted to make sure it stayed in the lead for a lap before mentioning it, but it has now got that position, and in overall, that represents 14th place in the overall position, so they're not hanging around there.
I think the 30 cars got back to the pits after its accident at Exmüller. The tyre regulations here are slightly different, aren't they, from the 24 hours, so I wonder if Michelin runners do have a slick to mediate here. It counts as just as a different compound of slick, but I'm not sure how many compounds of slick you're allowed. It's the number 7 Mercedes-Benz Black Falcon gets back up to speed, and that was it. Now that was at Exmüller as well, wasn't it? That was somebody off to the right, where the Cayman went off early on. When it is raining, it's just so difficult to know what to do tyre-wise. Just think of all that power under your right foot. How easily the car could get twitchy. Actually, he was further round. That must have been just coming out of Brünchen, where that yellow flag was. Hubert Hout started the number 7 Mercedes-Benz. It's been sitting in 7th position or thereabouts, 6th, 7th, for pretty much the whole of the 3.5 hours that we have had. 2.5 to go. So if a driver's been in since the start, they do need to be in within the next 3 minutes or so.
Yeah, I don't think that
I don't think anybody has been.
Any of them have been from what we can work out. I think the hard bit now is working out whether cars have some teams have 3 drivers, some only have 2, and whether the 2-driver teams have been double stinting their drivers, or whether the 3-driver teams have only ever been single stinting theirs. But I think the significant point is that the Haribo Mercedes, which is a 3-driver car, has now switched back to the first driver again. So Van der Zande, having started the race, handed over to Edward Sandstrom for the 2nd stint. Lucas Stoltz then did the 3rd stint. Now it's in for its 4th stint of the race, and Van der Zande back at the wheel. And as you say, nearly 3.5 hours of the race now elapsed, and still the conditions can't make their mind up. This is certainly not what the weather forecast said was going to happen.
Not at all.
They did say that having had the shower at the start of the race, it would then be about an hour or 2 of unsettled, but then it would dry out, and it certainly hasn't done that. But that, as I say, done as a remote weather forecast ahead of the game, whereas Manthey Racing, in fact, most of the teams there presumably will have fairly sophisticated satellite pictures of what the weather is around the Nürburgring area, for that is such an important aspect of it.
I think even with that though, Paul, you have to, the old adage is that if you start second guessing the weather, eventually you'll get burned. You can look like a hero, but you can also get very badly caught out. All you really can do is go with the prevailing conditions and what your driver's telling you. If you start to guess what it might be like, even what it might be like next time around, well, that's 10 minutes away.
If Joe Bradley were here, he'd tell you a story about how he won a race once by second-guessing the weather, but we won't bore you with that one.
That would have been a Formula Libra race, I think.
Formula Ford, you were right.
It was Formula Ford, was it?
Yeah, I think so.
And the thing was, not everybody has a Snetterton specialist to drive the car for you.
I'm sure we'll get the story again.
I've heard it many times, Paul, many times. But the thing is, what he doesn't tell you is how many times he second-guessed the weather and got it completely wrong.
You never do you?
No.
Anyway, getting some good shots of Adam Christodoulou's car, the dark blue and black Falcon Mercedes number 7, which is another of the Pro-Am SP9 cars. Hewitt Haupt, Manuel Metzger and Adam Christodoulou sharing the driving.
The 101 Gigaspeed Porsche GT3 Cup car out on a now very, very wet Nordschleife, enough that you can see the glistening of the road and wet weather tyres going onto the Falcon Porsche. This is the leader.
Yeah, this is its scheduled pit stop. So
this could be lucky for them.
8 laps for Klaus Bachler, I assume, although that's Martin Ragginger, who's now in the car.
Ragginger's just got into it, I think, Paul. That means they're back to their starting driver as well. Meantime, the leading Cup 5 car, the Pixum Racing car, I presume that car's gone back into the lead after the 666 had its accident. This is the 490 car.
This is where we need to have eyes in the back of our head, in a sense,
everywhere.
Because we need to know where Van der Zande is in the Haribo Mercedes. We know that he is still on slick tyres because we saw them going onto the car. And then behind that, we've got the 911 Porsche, which has already had its stop, and we saw being driven round at the last lap, at the completion of the last lap, with great verve by whoever was at the wheel. And so that are as well coming out of the Dottinger Hoa onto the start-finish straight at the same time, whilst we watch the Falcon tyres Porsche in the pit lane having the wet tyres fitted. So, as I say, you need to kind of visualise that in your mind's eye because we can't see all of it on the screen.
691 is leading Cup 5 now for BMWs by nothing at all, half a second from 675, and they are 22nd and 23rd overall, 23rd and 24th overall, as my screen has just refreshed. Meantime, the Manta has completed another lap.
And is also leading its class. It's the H2 class leader, I think, the number 617, the Foxtail Manta, and still going strongly. And
as is the Foxtail.
Doesn't it always?
The rear slam panel looking like it's been replaced or at least restored to full health after the hammering that it got with a 10-pound lump hammer in the 24-hour race.
Yes. It's you that referred to, what is it, not Oliver Cromwell's axe, what was it you called it?
Oh, I can't remember.
The car that has had every known part of it replaced.
Oh, Trigger's broom.
Trigger's broom, yeah. Including the Foxtail on several occasions.
They do carry a spare Foxtail in the, I was going to say in the glove box, in the tail box is the word I was looking for.
The tail box, yes.
Tail box, yes, very good. Very dark on the start-finish line now as the rain falls much more persistently. And through goes, now this is the 151 BMW going past now and into turn 1. That was the car that stalled at turn 3, in between turns 2 and 3, and had to be recovered to the pit lane. So it's back out again. This is an H4 BMW M4, not the full house GT4 car, but the sort of dark grey with the Pirelli sponsorship and Ronal wheels. Very handsome car, that, running that's running in SP4T, isn't it? That car, excuse me. with the BMW GT4 development car. Frickadelli have put Alexander Müller inside the car and on wet tyres. They've just tweeted that. Running in 6th place for the 31 car. As into the pit lane comes the 52 Mercedes-Benz AMG GT4. And if you listen carefully, you could hear the sound of the rain.
I thought that was something crackling somewhere, but it is rain, isn't it?
It's rain falling.
Landing on the microphone on the camera, overlooking the pit lane.
Yeah, the 50, and of course I picked the wrong car. It's the 54 car that's come in. It's the one with the grey and off-white. Having only been able to see the back of us as it came into the pit lane. I thought I saw a flash of yellow on the side. I was wrong. So it's the 54, and again, it's wet weather, grooved wet weather tyres. Getting ready to go onto that car.
In a sense, this is what they want for the test, because you don't not only get a test on the Nordschleife, but you also get a test in various conditions on the Nordschleife. And
the GT3 version of the AMG GT in the number 8 guys, the Aribo guys, is just coming in and out. Now, I presume that was to go onto wet weather tyres, having been on the dries the last time we saw it, because that's only a couple of laps it's been out there, Paul.
One lap only.
One lap, really?
So, yeah, 12-minute lap and 14 minutes by the time it had done its pit stop as well. So it's in lap, was its out lap, or it's out lap, then it's in lap as well. And so 2 stops on successive laps for the number 8.
And some of that is just luck, isn't it? Where you are on the track and when you need to come in for your pit stop. But it is full wet conditions on the Grand Prix circuit, with water being thrown up, with the lights glistening on the damp track, and it is particularly horrid out there at the moment. But this is where your rainmeisters really, pardon the pun, really shine.
Well, you say it's luck, it is partly luck, but as well, you need to have, I think, a structure within your team where somebody is making the decisions, and you don't get the shall we, shan't we kind of scenario, but you get a clear person who makes a decision, or he clearly passes the decision over to the driver. But the way that chain of command works, and then making it happen, to my way of thinking, is very important indeed, because that's how you can, you know, you make you make your own luck in some sense in those ways. Other times, yes, it can be lucky, because you may just luck into the weather, and not, depends how good your weather predicting is, I suppose, to an extent. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if we haven't got a Manthey Porsche at the moment out on wet tyres without it having to make that second pit stop. And because the pit stop that it did earlier on was a quicker one, I think that car may well come around next time around in the lead of the race. If it's not the Manthey Porsche in the lead of the race next time around, it'll be the Phoenix Audi number 15, the blue and white car.
Yeah, agreed.
Which comes through. So those are the two which are battling it out for the lead. The number 8.
And do we know what tyres the 15, the Phoenix Audi is on? I think
yes, they're definitely on slicks, because they haven't yet made their third pit stop. They're still... sorry, they have made their third pit stop, so that's a pit stop that's just been made. So I don't think...
Oh, really?
That, yeah, the 15 car has just made its third pit stop. So we didn't see it on the screen, but I think they must have switched to wets at that last pit stop when we did see the number 4 car going on to wet weather tyres.
It's definitely wet weather on, you know, I mean, the end of the Dottie Go, that crackling you hear is not crackling.
It's Tim frying bacon.
Oh, what can only hope. Yeah, it is horribly wet at the end of the lap coming back to the Grand Prix circuit. So this is another wave of rain, Paul, coming in, as it did not so heavily at the start of the race. It swept in unusually from the Grand Prix circuit and then across the rest of the circuit. It tends normally to come in from the far side of the track over at Brightside and sweep in that way, and quite often it'll be beautiful weather at the pit lane area, and then come in from over there, from the Adenauer sort of area. But This time the weather has come in entirely the opposite direction, and GT3 cars in the pit lane. Took my eye off what was going on there for a moment. And we've got a car being recovered on the track. It's one of the M235i Cup cars, and being passed just coming onto the ADAC Ruhr by the number 7 Falcon Mercedes-Benz, or Mercedes-AMG GT3. Anybody who's out on slicks there at the moment is struggling massively. So coming back towards the end of the lap, the number 7 Black Falcon Mercedes-Benz, and struggling massively to the point where a GT86 Toyota, which is one of the cars that you could do your training in, sub 300 horsepower, is going by, which would tell me that the Mercedes is not on the right tyres, and the K3 splits the difference between the pair of them, still battling for class lead. And coming through the kink at the end of the ADAC Ruhr, and the GT86 has gone by that Mercedes, the number 7 car,
in a straight line. So it wasn't even the cornering capability. It's purely the thing. The Mercedes has so much power that it's going to spin the wheels if Christodoulou, or whoever is at the wheel of it at the moment, just touches the throttle. So he's just so gentle on the throttle in order to just keep the thing going in a straight line. And
the K3 blew by the past of the pair of them as if they were chained to a post. Now, I think the car that I saw going into the pit lane was the Falcon BMW, Paul, and that car is just emerging now. So they've found themselves on the wrong tyres, I think, twice now. K3 with a huge diffuser aft of the rear wheels. It was splendid in that teal blue, white and rainbow colour scheme of the Kramer brothers. Man, I like that a lot. And still apparently the answer is no from the responsible adults. 52 BMW now alongside the Gigaspeed number 101 Porsche, as they are where they're on the just gone through Bergwerk and are heading uphill. And that's a GT4 car being passed by a Porsche Cup car, with a Renault Megane just about to go behind the 101 Porsche as well. 23 laps completed by the leaders. Last time that we have a timing number for them. I suspect that things will show a bit of a change when we next see them.
Yes, I think they're about to come through and complete their next lap now. So we should be getting them coming up to see the start-finish line for the 24th time. And 3 hours 42 minutes of the race have elapsed. And this weather isn't going to clear in a moment. I mean, no. the rain may start falling, may stop. Oh,
huge accident halfway down the ADAC Ruhr. And there's at least 2 cars, possibly 3 have been involved. There's a Renault off to the side of the road, driver's right. Now, does this involve any of the cars at the front of the field? The Manta Foxtail has gone through. In there is light blue roof with a large rear wing. That might be a GT3 car, code 60. Slow zone. Called down the purple and white flags going back quite some way. Now we'll have to, it's in the dip just as you come off. If you're doing your tourist laps, if you know the Nordschleife, just where you come on and off the ADAC Ruhr, it's just in the dip there. A very pretty blue Renault is getting back onto the circuit, having, I think, being involved in that and pulling away. But the 2 cars in the middle of the circuit as yet unidentified. And apologies for that, because we're only seeing the same pictures you are.
And what I can tell you, though, John, is that the race leader is now the 911 Manthey Porsche.
As we thought.
It did happen. It has gone through in the lead. In second place has gone the Falcon Tyres Porsche following its pit stop onto wet weather tyres. In third place, not yet having come through, therefore, should be the number 15 Phoenix Audi, but that car hasn't yet come through.
So the Fricatelli 31 car fighting its way through the far side of the circuit in traffic, but just unable to find any grip at all on the track.
Is that blue sky above?
Possibly.
Hard to say, but certainly looks quite brighter overhead.
Heading down over the bridge at Breitscheid. Coming down to that area of the track now. So half a lap away from where that accident has put out a slow zone, halfway along the Dottike Ruhr. That was a couple of minutes ago when that came out. Wolfgang Kaufmann back in the Kramer. The KC, nicknamed Piranha because he's so good in the wet. Thank you, Airborne, for that. Still to see which cars, anything on the ticker as to which cars were involved on that Dottike Ruhr?
No, I can't can't give you any clue at all, I'm afraid. Certainly the Clio did seem to get going again, though, so
yeah.
Whether that was bound for the pits or not, I don't know, but certainly none of the leading group seem to have been involved.
All of a sudden the 20 cars up to 5th position. As they, well, my laps aren't as up to date as the other timing screen. I'll wait and I'll pause. I've got Dumas' car, the 911, across the line in the lead, ahead of the 4 by 1.7 seconds, and no one else yet scored across the line, but the timing is a little bit slow. 62 gigaspeed car is on a very wet part of the circuit, which is heading up to the end of the Foxhole and Adenauer Forest.
I think the whole of the track is pretty wet at the moment.
I think you're right.
So.
Oh, standing water there, just as you head into the Adenauer Forest part at the end of the Foxhole. That's horrible.
Third place, I can confirm, is the Phoenix Audi, but some 2.5 minutes behind the first two. And then in fourth place is the Haribo Mercedes, a further 30 seconds behind.
Yellows all the way back from Schwalbenschwanz to the Dottike Ruhr. And speculation that's the 116 and the 627 cars involved in that crash. They're both showing us stopped on a tracker at the moment, which we don't have access to, I'm afraid to say. Very impressed again with the driver of the 62 gigaspeed car, who's having to work very hard indeed in that Porsche GT, I think, and not quite as smooth on the steering as they were earlier on in the intermediate style conditions, but really muscling the wheel to get the front end to bite, not worrying about the understeer now. Paul?
190
right.
has had an accident, but it says on the screen here it was a Schwedenkreuz. So that certainly wasn't the accident that we could see. That was in this most recent period of wet weather when that message came up just 3 minutes ago.
Extraordinary driving by whoever is behind the wheel of the 62. Has just been dry, and it's about being on the right tyres, of course. We saw the 7 Black Falcon struggling earlier on and being passed by a GT86 Toyota. And I can't believe they're still toughing it out on slick tyres, but maybe they are. Fricatelli Racing Team car coming to the end of the lap and passing a couple of cars in rather unusual places. No, sorry, he's a bit further back. That camera's a bit low down. He's into the second carousel. Yeah, well, he's coming to the end of the lap, I suppose. So 911's gone through, 4's gone through, 15's gone through in third, fourth, but now 3 minutes back from the leader is the 8 AMG GT, the Haribo car. Big gaps opening up, Paul, at the front of the field now.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is kind of the good and the bad of having a big circuit, because even though we've got this yellow zone at the end of the lap, at the end of the Stunden ADAC Ruhr, the majority of the circuit is still a racetrack, and there are still racing going on there. So an opportunity for everybody to push on. And if you're in the Manthey Porsche, for example, I think it's possibly Romain Dumas back at the wheel of that car, having had that earlier pit stop on the previous round of pit stops, meant that because it was an earlier pit stop, it was a shorter pit stop, and that's why the 911 has been able to take the lead. However, that car has the least fuel on board of all of the leading runners, so that's going to be the first pit stopper come the next set of pit stops. And with still 2 hours and 10 minutes to go, there are still going to be at least 2 more pit stops to be made. It's
also got the oldest wet weather tyres that were out when it wasn't as wet as it is now, Paul.
Good point. Yeah. So
I mean that was there. They had 2 advantages of stopping a lap early. 1, they were less time in the pits, and 2, they were on the right tyres before everyone else. So they had the advantage of the wet weather tyres full.
Yeah, absolutely. What's going to be interesting is to see what the lap times are at the end of this lap, because it's the first full flying lap for both of them since their respective pit stops.
10:45 for the 911.
This is on lap 24. But for the number 4, we're still waiting for a proper flying lap, because its previous lap was its out lap, which includes time spent in the pits. So to compare those laps at the end of the next lap round, which they're on at the moment, to see between the 2 Porsches which one holds the upper hand. I think the Haribo car, having had its stop, extra stop for the extra set of tyres, and the Phoenix Audi, which is quite sure why that has lost so much time. I think partly through being on the wrong tyres at the wrong time, but I think it may have got caught out as well in that incident on the Stunden ADAC Ruhr. Not in the sense that he was involved in the incident, but that the accident happened after the leaders had gone through and before the Phoenix Audi got there. So that's why it's kind of lost 2 minutes on the battle for the lead. But it's looking like a battle between the Porsches, first and second, Audi third, Mercedes fourth.
I know this sounds stupid to say, but the conditions are really difficult out there, not just because it's wet, but the spray, and there's now sunshine in the spray, and the visibility for the number 8 Haribo Mercedes as it heads up the hill towards Callenhard, very difficult indeed. Dropped a couple of left-hand side wheels off the track there for a moment, going past slower cars. Through comes the Falcon BMW M6 to complete another lap, and it's very wet indeed on the start-finish line. I
think that's the last car actually on the lead lap. This is number 3 BMW. We'll see where it comes through. It's currently running in 7th place, but I think that's the last car on the lead lap. The next one through will be the number 31 Fricadelli Porsche of Alex Müller-Norbert Ziedler, and I think that car has been lapped. We'll see when they come through the completion. Just go back to what you were saying though, John, about the conditions. Echo everything you say, but in addition to that, you've got a track where it's not raining as much, or indeed at all in some places, which means that the amount of grip available to you is a bit more than it was last time around. So not only have you got to contend with all those things you've been describing, but you've got to push the envelope to find out where the limit is. So yes, extremely tricky to get the best out of your car here. You're not just, you know, that cushion that we were talking about earlier on. You have to be so much more careful with it, but you still need to push against it. You can't mess around. You know, there's 2 minutes of a gap that needs to be caught back if you're in either the Audi or the Haribo Mercedes, and it's not necessarily going to be the work of the moment to do. So a little over 2 hours remain. Definitely sunshine down at Brunchen, Pflanzgarten area of the circuit now as we ride on board with the Haribo Mercedes in 4th place. And so the leaders will be up ahead somewhere and approaching the Döttinger Höhe, I would think, very shortly. And therefore we'll then see, although they're in full racing conditions now, although being cautious, we'll see them coming under the yellow flag zone, the code 60 zone, which is at the end of the lap. Just to explain, the code 60 flag that we get at the Nordschleife is not a code 60 as we get in preventing style races where it happens around the whole circuit. It's a zoned code 60. And it is the most severe of the various options open to the organisers that they can impose. What they can impose as well is a straightforward double yellow when in effect a speed limit of 120 kilometres an hour is imposed in the double yellow phase. But if they want them even slower than that, then they can have what they call the code 60, which is a 60 kilometres an hour zone for a particular period of the racetrack.
I think you might find that the number 4 car comes through the next lap in the lead, just before, in fact, where the 8 car is now is the start of the yellow flag period. Double yellows, single yellow, double yellow, and then the purple flags if required. That's how it works. And just waiting for the leaders to come through. And yes, indeed.
No.
No. No. So the number 4 still in second place on the Grand Prix circuit as they've gone through to complete lap number 25.
But the gap as they crossed the line, less than a second. So it was pretty much, it wasn't nose to tail, it was side by side as they crossed the line. And but the Manthey car just managing to take the advantage, and it's bright sunshine down on the Grand Prix loop now. Huge amounts of spray as they try and get rid of all this rainwater, but once they do get rid of the rainwater, of course, the lifetime of those wet tyres does become more limited, as you were saying, John. However, it might work out quite nicely. We're now on the, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th lap for this set of tyres for the Manthey car. So yeah, they're going to perhaps get the best of them because they'll stop a little bit earlier, but they'll be onto the slick tyres kind of when the wet tyres are at the end of their useful period, whereas the Falcon tyre car, the number 4 car, will make it stop probably as a result of conditions switching from wet to dry rather than necessarily being able to use all its fuel. So a very finely balanced race indeed between those two, and nothing to choose at all between their lap times then as they completed their 25th lap. 2 hours remain of the race, 4 hours have gone, and the Phoenix Audi in 3rd place. Just waiting for that, that's going across the line now and waiting for the time to come up. It was just over 2 minutes on the previous time around, but the lap times, with the result of the yellow flag zone on the Döttinger Höhe plus also the weather conditions, practically the same. In fact, if anything, the Phoenix Audi lost out to the tune of almost 3 seconds, over 3 seconds to the race leader, so still in 3rd place, but losing ground a little bit did the Phoenix Audi then. Peter Terting sharing with Frank Stippler in that car, and
clear on the Döttinger Höhe, and 1 or 2 people I think getting slightly caught out by that. The green flags have just come out, so are they still yellow further back? Not sure, but they are green at the site of the accident and are now being withdrawn. So that was exceptional work again by the guys. Can't tell you which cars were involved still, and I don't think the ticker's dated yet.
And 10 seconds made up on that lap by the Haribo Mercedes.
And blue skies again over the start-finish line.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, as you put it, John, the conditions very difficult to kind of get your head around, because you do have the spray to deal with, the sunshine to deal with, but you do need to push on as well. So you can't be hanging around. That voice in your headset saying, "Come on, push, push, push," particularly for the cars in class leading positions. And as I say, the rate of progress being made by the Haribo Mercedes on that last lap. It's got well, it had 35-second 35-second disadvantage on the Phoenix Audi. That has come down now to some 25 seconds. So if the Haribo Mercedes can continue to make up ground, that will serve it very nicely indeed. But those, it is still the top 7 cars that are on the lead lap.
Gotta love the Eiffel, just for the weather. Raining and then wet track with beautiful sunshine. You know, just extraordinary stuff. So now, having survived the worst of the rain and the dull conditions, you're now in bright sunshine with the sun in your eyes and spray diffusing the beautiful sunlight, so you can't see your hand in front of your face. Oh, and by the way, there's standing water across the track in places as well. All right, lovely.
And there's somebody else chasing you down on your tail, so and so you have to push on to keep your position.
And remember, as we said before, Paul, the issue here is the massive variety of driver experience, and there will be people going, I'm just getting back to the pits, thanks very much indeed, I just need to finish this lap and I'm not racing anybody. Paul?
Yeah, the incident that we had on the Döttinger Höhe, it was a 627, the Renault Clio car, which got going again. Whether it actually went to the pits and continued or not, we don't know, but 627, one of them. The other one being the 116 Porsche GT3 Cup car, 116 being in the Cup 2 class. Chris Kuhl's Jan-Han Choi, Lucas Mergsen and Milan Kodidek. Combination of drivers from Belgium, the Korean Republic, the Czech Republic and Germany. So a fine international car, but sadly, I think after its accident, the 116 car was certainly the more damaged of those two on the Döttinger Höhe, although the Renault Clio 627 did actually get going again.
Kick of speed Porsche just heading out on another lap, and again those Cup Porsches, when they are going very well and embarrassing a lot of other cars in terms of their wet weather grip. Looks very, very controllable, even chancing a bit of the curb, heading up beyond the Flugplatz towards Swedenkreuz. Very sensible driving, just gently on and off the throttle. Nothing too silly, down one gear, coming through Metzgerfeld, through Swedenkreuz rather, in towards Arenberg. Lovely driving. Bright sunshine now heading into the Vauxhall. A little bit of spray in the air in front means there's a car somewhere there, so got to keep your wits about you. It's far enough away that's not going to affect them into lifting off at the bottom of the hill. Now he's going to have to think about the cars ahead of him as he heads to the right-hander of Adenauer Foss. Went down a gear early there, I noticed, for the left-hander. Normally you'd go through there without changing down. It's the Lexus IS that he goes by. Round the outside. Oh, big armfuls of opposite lock and right up onto the block paving on the exit. Now towards Metzgerfeld. Come in from the middle of the road. You don't need to take the line here. Another Porsche ahead of him. Swap back to his teammate. Different part of the track. Looks like that might be end of that Hatzenbach. Yeah, it is. Well, that camera's quite low down in the car. Difficult to see the track. Lovely shot of the trees, though. Just coming out through the twiddly bits after Hatzenbach and Hoeischen, down to that quick right-hander at Flugplatz. Meantime, our leaders
should be coming up to Tiergarten any minute now, John.
Yeah, the battle for class between the Porsche and the K3 Porsche just coming to the end of the lap now. Now that is first and second in their class, I believe, as Where'd that Porsche go? He's just gone off. In front of the K3, there was a red, white and black Porsche. Oh, no, there it is. Just slipped out of the camera shot for a moment. Going up the inside of the Corrado at turn 1. Oh, no, it's not the battle for the lead. That is the 62. That's the Gigaspeed car in SP7. Behind him is the 600, the K3, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's in a battle with 588, although it's behind the 588.
And there's the leaders just going through turn 1 now. So this is 62 leads SP7 is in the top 10. And that is the 997 Cup car.
And the gap increasing between the leaders as Romain Dumas probably back into the Manthey Porsche 911 again by now, ahead of the Martin Rangiger Klaus Bachler Falcon Porsche. That gap going up to 3.2 seconds on that time through, and 26 laps now completed for those two. Still the gap of something over 2 minutes back to the third and fourth place cars, and whether or not that gap is going to go up or not, we'll have to wait and see. But it is just 7 cars on the lead lap now. The first car to have been lapped being number 7, the Black Falcon Mercedes, which has had an extra pit stop plus an off at Tradenkreuz, from which either Manuel Metzger or Adam Christodoulou recovered. The Audi in third place, still to come through, the Phoenix Audi, number 15, shared with Frank Stippler and Peter Terting. Stippler having done a double stint at the beginning of the race, we think, and then Peter Terting having taken it over for the next two. But that car is still in third place, 20 or so, 25 seconds around on its last lap, ahead of the Haribo Mercedes. But on the last lap, the Haribo Mercedes actually managed to take 10 seconds off the gap between itself and this Audi. So the Phoenix Audi then going through, still kicking up the spray, even though it's stopped raining and bright sunshine. So still very much wet weather conditions. The right tyres for the job, wet tyres, the right tyres for the job. And we'll wait and see when and who is the first to jump back onto the slicks, but it would be a brave man to do so just yet. But within what, John, a couple or 3 laps at most, I would say, then we're going to be back to what should be slick tyre conditions. The weather stays dry to us.
Yeah, I always think it's harder to decide whether to change back from wets to slicks than to go from slicks to wets. Trick of the light on the windscreen of the number 4 Porsche, looking like there was a blazing coal fire inside. I'm putting another shovel on, sir.
Yes, it's very bizarre. I was wondering why we were getting the replay until I realised why. But yes, just a reflection giving us the flame effect in the back of the Falcon Tyres Porsche. So those two, the Audi and the Haribo Mercedes, go through again, and from 25 seconds the gap comes down to 21 seconds, so another 4 seconds gained by Van der Zande, who I think is now at the wheel of the Haribo Mercedes, going great guns, but with 2.5 minutes of a gap between himself and the leader. Well, anything could happen. We've still got 2 hours, just nearly 2 hours to go in the race, still time for anything to happen. And then behind that, a further 2 minutes, in fact 3 minutes behind, is the battle between the Schubert BMW, which is currently the leading BMW, and the 31 Fricadelli Porsche.
When is the 911 car due in, if it was to do its 8 laps?
It depends what it did. If it were to do 8 laps, it comes in at the end of lap 29, and it's currently on 27th. So a maximum of 2 laps to go. And I think that's about right, to be honest. I think they'll have just about got it right with the amount of fuel aboard, so they'll have used a full tank. They'll have just about used the best of their wet weather tyres, and I think in about 2 laps it's going to be time to switch to slicks. You were saying a moment ago,
around 3/4 of the lap, I would say you're right. The last quarter, maybe third of the lap is still too wet for slicks, I think. But there's a dry line, not even just a dry. There's a drying line, lots of places, but there's a dry line in the middle part of the track where the sun's shining on it.
It's sunny. It's August. The ambient temperature may not be huge. It's still 17, 18, but it's not like some of the races we've seen at the Nürburgring.
True.
Where even when it stops raining, it takes an age to dry and never really properly dries. So I think the opportunities are there, but you said it a moment ago, the hard thing is decide when to switch back from wets to slicks, because the wets get more and less effective as they get older, whereas slicks can tend to last quite well. The wet weather tyres will get less and less effective, but also they'll get more and more worn, but then the track is drying, so you don't need the depth of the wet truck either. So it's a very difficult call to make, and this is where you really do have to hand it over to the driver. Say, look, we've looked at the weather forecast, it's not going to rain anymore. When you think the wets are past their best, come in.
In some ways, you know, because of the way wet tyres are designed, you want them to wear, because what you don't want as the track's getting dry is still big tread blocks.
Exactly.
Because they'll move around, and at that point, you'll start car sliding around. If you've got very little of the grooves left, if you're getting right onto the ragged edge of whether you should change the wets anyway because they've worn down, then the drier spots, they'll actually work more like quote-unquote intermediates, and you might not be as badly off as you thought you would have been.
Particularly because you've got the temperature in them already.
Yes.
So you don't have to get them up to temperature. The temperature is there already. So yeah, you're right. It's a difficult call to make, but it's not quite such a serious call to make because things are working kind of for you rather than against you all the time. Having said that, it's could be a race-winning or losing decision if you get the thing wrong. So, you know,
well, round here, 1 lap either way can make a huge difference, as we saw for the 911.
You can easily lose a minute, yeah. So I think there's still plenty of action to go. Hour and 48 minutes still remaining. Still 7 cars on the lead lap, 2 of them separated by less than 4 seconds. Then we've got a 2-minute gap back to the 3rd and 4th place cars, but the fascinating prospect there of the 4th place car closing in on the 3rd place car, and then behind that BMW and the Fricadelli Porsche, the 5th and 6th place cars.
What's interesting now for me, Paul, is that the Mercedes, that was the newer Opel Calibra that he's just gone past, which had a horrible ding in the right rear quarter. The number 8 Haribo AMG, I think, is now looking for wet patches where he can on the track. He's searching for the damp line.
If that, I'm not denying that's happening, but that car has been on its wet weather tyres 2 laps less long than the 911 Porsche has. So if
it's dry at Callenhard going up the hill.
Yeah, quite. So it may not be...
Kesselchen, sorry.
It may be that the Manthey car doesn't go to the full 29 laps, could quite easily just go to 28 laps. They'll be looking at the time. If they make a stop now, there'll be 1 more stop to make after that, inevitably. If they can get to the last half hour, so if they can keep going for another 15, 20 minutes, then the last stop could be in that last half-hour window when it can just be a fuel only.
And 15 and 20 minutes is a lap and a half.
Precisely. So it's you know, it's a good time to stop. Either I think at the end of this lap is going to be too soon, but at the end of next lap it could be a good time for all of them to stop, and we may see them all coming in, having had the Manthey Porsche in first when it started to rain. We may well see them all coming in at the same time to switch back to slicks.
At RSL_studio, Paul Trustwell, I'm John Hindorf, as we come down to the deciding lap, hour and 3/4. Well, it's been an enthralling race here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife of the VLN 5, live on the Radio Show Limited network, channels 1 and 3, radiolemans.com, and RSL Extra. And at the moment, the weather conspiring to make the choices very difficult indeed for all of the teams and driver. Apologies that we haven't been giving you the usual updates on the classes, but as you will have noticed, the timing has been a little more temperamental than usual. And of course, as I say that, it's just popped back up again, so I should be able to get it up on this other machine. There we go. So I'll save that for later. So the reason I asked about the 911 car, Paul, the number 911, was just for that exact reason, to wonder how close they are to being able to do it on a schedule that will get them into the last half hour, and what they might have left on their tyres. They've just completed what will be their 27th lap.
Correct.
And are on the Grand Prix loop again.
Yeah, and having done that, I think that we could well see certainly the first 4 cars coming in at the end of the next lap, at the end of this lap that they're on now. I'm just confused now because the 911 we just saw